Hi everybody, this is Crystal. So today I'm going to show you how to make a couple things here, a matching set. So I'm going to show you how to make this headband here, which is worked in a round. And it's the same stitch here, which is worked in back and forth rows for a pocket scarf. If you made it a little larger, you could be a pocket shawl, whatever you want to call it. If you don't even want the pocket, you can just make a regular scarf. But I'm going to give you the measurements and I'm going to give you the multiples in case you want to use a thinner yarn than I did, or a thicker yarn, whatever. So we'll start with the headband, and now this should fit about 21.5 to 23 inch head because it will stretch, but I'll go ahead and give you a measurement on it. It's about 10.5 inches across or so, almost 11, but remember it will stretch. And wide, about 4.5. Now you can always make it wider if you want. And then we're gonna go ahead and I'll tell you the measurement of of this. Now I am 5'3", so I'm not very tall. So you see me wearing this and where it lands on me. If you're taller, you might want to make your chain longer than mine. But as mine sits right now, with the pockets folded up, it measures about 56 inches. Now before I folded the pockets up, it measured about 76 inches, okay? So the pockets are about 9.5 inches or so, something like that each. Now, the chain that you make for this is the length, so it's going to be one big long chain. So if you need to adjust for your height or you're using a different size yarn, you need to make a chain long enough that will wrap around your neck and your shoulders and go all the way down to the length of your hands, and then about 10 inches past each hand, because this was made one big piece. Like I said, mine was about 76 inches, and then I just folded my pockets up about 9.5 inches or so, and I slip stitched them. So there wasn't any sewing on pockets. This is just one long piece you can see here, and I just flipped it up and slip stitched them both together. So just remember that your beginning chain is your length, and if you need to measure and you want pockets, make sure you go about 10 inches past each hand. That way you have room to fold up your pockets. So it's actually quite easy. It's not that hard. I will mention now, both of these, whether you're working back and forth or in the round like we did for the headband, is done in a multiple of 3. And also, if you see, when we work back and forth on the pocket shawl or scarf or whatever, pocket scarf, the crossover stitches do line up. But when you work in the round, they are going to be they're going to go kind of diagonal. That's fine. They're not going to be right on top of each other. That's how it does when you work it in the round. But it's so beautiful anyways, regardless. So that's that. I just wanted to mention that in case you noticed that when you were working it, that it wasn't lining up like your scarf. So remember, I'm 5'3". You see those pictures. You could adjust your yarn and your height and stuff to make your chain. Remember, the chain is the length, so it'll be a big long chain. And if you want pockets, just be certain that you fold, or that you do about 10 inches past each hand so you can fold your pockets up. We'll start off with the scarf first. Okay, I really like this yarn. I probably mentioned it 100 times in the video, but it's so pretty. I used Yarnspirations Bernat Symphony yarn. It is a rowing style yarn, and it is classified as a bulky number 5. Of course, you don't have to use a bulky 5. Since I gave you the multiples, you can just, if you have a 4-weight or a 3-weight, you can just adjust your beginning chain to make it as long as you want, to wrap around your shoulders, and go down to where your hands are, and make sure you leave like 9.5 inches or so to fold extra on each side, so you can fold that up and make the pocket. So this one is 80 acrylic, 20 wool, and there are 309 yards per ball. Now, I went through, this is my second one. So I'm going to say you're going to need about 500 yards of a bulky 5, probably 520. That's just a guess. But if you make it longer, you will need more. You will need more if you use a 4-weight or a 3-weight yarn, of course. Now remember, you never have to use this yarn. And we are going to be using 2 different size hooks. Now, for the bulky 5 and for a 4-weight, when we make the scarf, we're going to be using a K, which is a 6.5 millimeter crochet hook. If you use a 3-weight, I would recommend going down to a 5.5 millimeter. And when we make the headband, we're going to be using a J, whether you're using a 4-weight or a bulky 5. And if you are using a 3-weight, I would go down to probably a 5 millimeter. Okay, but again, you can adjust that by your beginning chain by measuring around your head, because remember, these are done in multiples of 3, and since I give you the multiple, it's very easy to adjust. So let's go ahead and start off with the scarf first. So we're going to be using our 6.5 millimeter, whether you're using a 4-weight or a bulky 5. Okay, so a multiple of 3. Now for mine size, and my yarn is actually kind of a thick bulky 5, I chained 183 stitches. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and show you on a smaller scale how to do this stitch. It's not hard at all, since I already have my big piece done. Now remember, if you're adjusting the length of your chain, remember you want to start out with a multiple of 3. So I did 183. You want to make sure your chain goes around your neck and down to where you put your hands flat, and then 9.5 to 10 inches past that on each hand. That way you can fold that up for the pocket. Unless you don't want pockets, then you can just make it a regular scarf. But we'll go ahead and get started now. Sorry for all the blabbering. I just wanted to make sure everybody understood those measurements and how you can adjust for different yarns. So you got your chain of 183. If you're following along with me, we're going to go ahead and do a single crochet in the second stitch from the hook, and then we're going to work 1 single crochet in every stitch of the chain. Just like this. So I'll meet back up with you when I get to the end of my row. Okay, once you get to the end of row 1, if you're following along with me, you should have 182 stitches now. So rows 2 and 3 are the repeat rows. So we are going to start off by chaining 1 and turning our work. And we're going to work a double crochet right here into this very first stitch. And then we're going to work 1 double crochet in every stitch till we get to the end of the row. So it is just an easy 2-row repeat. It's not hard. I know some people think those crossovers are hard, but they're not hard. They're really pretty easy to do, and I'm going to show you how easy they are. So 1 double in every stitch until you make it to the end of the row. Alright, when you make it to the end, you still should have 182 stitches. So now we're going to start row 3. We're going to chain 1 and turn our work. Now we're going to double crochet right there in that very first stitch. Like that. Now we're going to start our crossover. So we're going to skip the next stitch, and we're going to work 1 double crochet in each of the next 2 stitches. So we skip this one, and we go into the next one, and we work a double crochet. And then the one after that, we're going to work a double crochet like that. And now we're going to do our crossover. We're going to be working in this stitch right here that we skipped. So we're going to yarn over, because we're going to be doing a double crochet. yarn over and go in front of these 2 double crochets and go through that stitch, and then put your yarn, pull your hook way back there and grab that yarn and pull it back through. Now just draw it up like that a bit, and then just go ahead and do a double crochet like normal, just like that. So that's not that hard. Let's do it again. So we're going to skip 1 stitch. Make sure you're skipping a stitch. This looks maybe like a stitch that you could skip, but if you look closely, it has been worked. So make sure you see that one. So we need to skip this stitch right here and 1 double crochet in each of the next 2. So this one's been worked. So we skip this one, and in this one we're going to do a double crochet. And in the next one we're going to do a double crochet. And now we're going to work our crossover again, our double crochet crossover. So we're going to yarn over, cross over those 2 double crochets, and go into that stitch that we skipped. I always go way back with my hook and grab that yarn and then pull it through, and then draw up like that, and then go ahead and do your double crochet like normal. There you go. You just did another crossover. And that's what we're going to repeat all the way across. So we're going to skip 1 stitch. So I'll be skipping this stitch here, and I'm going to double crochet into the next. And then double crochet into the next again. So that's 2 double crochets there. Now we're going to do our double crochet crossover back into the stitch that we skipped. So we're going to yarn over, go in front of those 2 double crochets and into the stitch that we skipped. Go way back and grab that yarn that's on your finger and pull it through. Now all you got to do is just pull it up a bit till it's about even with the rest of your stitches, and do a regular double, just finish out your double crochet like normal. See how easy that is? Now this is, if it's new to you, it's okay if you don't get it on the first time. A little bit, you do it a couple times though, you'll get the hang of it. Again, we're just going to repeat that pattern until we get to the end. So we're going to skip 1 stitch and put a double crochet into the next, double crochet into the next, and then we're going to do that crossover again. So we're going to yarn over and cross over those 2 stitches and go into that stitch that we skipped. Go way back and grab that yarn and pull it through, and then draw up a little bit like that, so you got kind of along there, and do your double crochet just as normal, just like that. So we're going to repeat this until we get to the end. I'll do it one more time. Skip 1 stitch, go into the next and double crochet, and double crochet again into the next. Now let's cross over and go back into that stitch that we skipped. So we're going to yarn over, go right into that stitch, grab that yarn, pull it up to the top, and then finish out your double crochet like normal. So we're going to repeat that pattern until we get to the end of the row. Alright, I have made it to the end here, and I did my crossover, and I have 1 stitch that remains. I'm just going to go ahead and put a double crochet in that remaining stitch. That's it. Now, okay, if you count every single stitch, you will have 182 stitches, or if you count your cluster here, crossover cluster, you'll have 60 of those. So that's it. We're just going to repeat rows 2 and 3. So for row 4, we're just going to do what we did on row 2, which is a double crochet in every stitch. So double crochet in that first stitch, and double crochet in every stitch across until we get to the end of the row. And we'll have 82 stitches, or 182 stitches when we get to the end of the row. And then we'll repeat the crossover cluster again. And we're going to keep doing that until we get our scarf as thick as we want it to be. Okay, so you can make this as wide as you want it. If you wanted to make it like a shawl, or like I wasn't going to make a rectangle shawl, but I decided I think a pocket thing would go over, or would go a little bit better. So like I said, you can do it wider if you want, but for me, I'll show you how wide I stopped at. Can't even get it on my camera here. About 10 inches there, you can see. But so I did a total of, counting that first row of single crochet there, 1, 2, 3, 14 rows. Okay, so now I'm going to make the pocket. So you want to end in a, however big you decide to make yours. If you're making it different than mine, you want to end in a row of double crochets, but don't tie off. You can see I still have my loop here. So what I'm going to do is, you can choose whatever side you like better. Really doesn't matter actually to me, but I guess I'll just start right here. Now you want to fold your pocket up. Get your tape measure out. I don't know, however big you want it actually, but we'll see how big I'm gonna go. I'm gonna do about 9-10 inches or so for my pocket. About like that. That's about mine. Ears, however big you want though. So what I'm gonna do now is it over here, so I'm working on the right side. Start where I stopped there, and now I'm just going to grab a stitch from the other side here and take my yarn here, and I am going to slip stitch through like that. Then I'm going to go into the next stitch and the next stitch on the other side and slip stitch. I'm going to do this all the way down, and that's how we're going to sew our pockets on. Just slip stitching it all the way down. You can single crochet if you want, if you prefer, that's fine. And you can even use a yarn needle if it's easier that way for you. But I'm going to do this all the way down until I get to the end, and then we're going to go ahead and do the same on the other side over here. Okay, so you can see I've made it to the end of my pocket here, so I'm just going to go ahead and clip my yarn and then tie that off, and I'll hide that tail in a bit. Now I'm going to come over on this side and slip stitch the same. Now since I have my slip stitch seam on my pocket facing this side, I want to make sure that the slip stitch is facing the same over here. And again, I want to do a quick measure just to make sure that my pockets are straight. So you can kind of try to line it up by row, but this pocket, I'm having a hard time with my tape measure today. Okay, so it goes down to about 9 1/4 inches here. Yeah, it's about the same here. So what I'm going to do is start my yarn again. This time I'll have, since I want the slip stitches facing the same way as these down here, I'll have to start at the bottom. So just kind of grab here at the bottom, anywhere through both pieces like that, and we'll go ahead and start our yarn and chain 1, and then we're going to go through both pieces and slip stitch just like we did on the other side. Now, oops, I lost it. Now our slip stitches will be on, both be on the right side of our work. So we're going through both pieces of the pocket. Remember, if you feel like it's easier for you to use a yarn needle, you can definitely do that. Sometimes I use yarn needles because it's easier for me, but it's really kind of just your preference. Do this all the way up till I get to the top, just the same way as we did on the other side, and then I'll meet you up the top here. Alrighty, so I made it all the way up here. So again, I'm going to tie off And then I'm going to hide this tail in a bit. But, oops, not it up there. And I'll have to hide this tail down here. But we got one pocket done. And again, I'm just going to get a quick measure just so I can get the other pocket about the same. And it's about 9 1/4. So now we're going to come to the other side. Make sure your pockets are on the same. So I folded mine this way. I want to make sure I fold the other side the same way. And we are just going to slip stitch them together, just like we did down there. But you want to measure, make sure it's all the same. So I'm going to get mine about a 9 1/4 again. Yeah, that's about good enough for me. You know, it's never going to be perfect. Ain't nothing ever going to be perfect. That's why we call it homemade. All right. So again, we're just going to start at the corner down here, just like we did on that last one. Pull through and chain 1, and then we're just going to start slip stitching our 2 pieces together here. I guess this is a little bit easier than sewing on a pocket, but quicker anyways. Alright, I made it there and I just clipped my yarn again. So we're going to do the same thing that we did on the other side. We're going to go ahead and flip our work around. This time we'll be starting at the top and slip stitching down. I always recommend taking a measure just so you know your pocket's lining up right. And again, it's about 9 1/4, so make sure we got that over here. We're close to it, and that's good enough for me. And we'll just start our yarn the same way, and we'll work our way down slip stitching. So I'm going to go ahead and finish sewing on this pocket, or slip stitching on this pocket, and then I'm going to hide any remaining tails that I have hanging around, which I have a lot of them. And then I'll meet back up with you after that and we'll check out, see what our finished product looks like. All right, there it is. Mine is finished. So I think it turned out pretty good. The yarn was really pretty. Look, and remember, okay, we're using a 6mm, so we're going to go ahead and start off with a chain of 60. And that would be regardless whether you're using a 4 or 5 weight. And then we're going to go ahead and follow it down. And we're going to start with a big ring. So follow it all the way down, and we're going to slip stitch into our first stitch to form a ring. So go ahead and slip stitch like that. And we are going to chain 3. Now that chain 3 is going to count as a double crochet, okay? And now we're going to work 1 double crochet in every stitch of the chain. Just like this. So I'm going to continue around putting 1 double in every stitch until I make it back to my starting point. Alright, I've made it around to my starting point, and in the row 1 you should have a total of 60 stitches, and that's counting that chain 3 there. So we're going to go ahead and end by slip stitching into the top of that chain 3. Now, okay, so now what we're going to do, it's going to be similar to what we did with the scarf. The first little cluster is a little bit different. So we're going to chain 3, and that's going to count as a double crochet. And then we're going to go into the next stitch right here, and we're going to do a double crochet. Now what we're going to do, this is where it gets different. We're going to cross these 2 double crochets and go into this double crochet back here, the last one of the row from the previous row. So we're going to yarn over, go back into that one, cross over like we did with our scarf, draw up a loop, and then do our double crochet like that. So now we'll start our repeat, and we're going to skip 1 stitch and double crochet into the next 2. 1, 2, and then we'll cross over and go into that skip stitch and do our double crochet like we did for the scarf, like that. Again, we're going to skip 1 and a double crochet into the next 2. So there's 1 and 2, and then we will cross over those 2 stitches and go into that skip stitch and do our double crochet. So we're going to repeat this all the way around until we get back to our starting point. Okay, now when you're coming around here to the end of round 2, I'll show you how we're going to end it. So I went ahead and skipped a stitch, and then I did my 2 double crochets there into the next 2 stitches. So I'm going to go ahead and cross over them and do my double crochet into that stitch that I skipped. Now we should have no stitches left, because if you look, this is where we put our double crochet in there. So all stitches are now used up. Remember when we first started, we went back a row and did the double crochet into that back stitch. So there's no more stitches left. So what we're going to do is end by slip stitching here into the top of our beginning chain 3, like that. And I believe you should have 20 of those little clusters all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. All right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do similar to what we did with the scarf. Actually, the same pretty much. We're going to chain 3, which is going to count as a double crochet here. And then we are going to go into the first stitch, or into the next stitch, and double crochet. I know that I didn't chain 3 on the scarf, and I'm chaining 3 here. It's just easier for the hat to chain 3 in place of the double. And now I'm going to put 1 double crochet in every stitch all the way around until I get back to my starting point. And when we get back around the end of round 3, we should have 60 stitches. So I'll meet you back up in just a second. There we go. That's looking nice. Alright, I've made it to the end of round 3, and I have my 60 stitches, so I'm going to go ahead and end by slip stitching into my top of my chain 3. Now it's just a repeat of rows 2 and 3 until we get our hat a little bit taller. So I'll go ahead and show you how we do start row 3 one more time. So we start out with a chain of 3. Remember, that counts as our double crochet. And then we double crochet into the next stitch. Now we're going to go back into this stitch right here. This was our last stitch from the previous row. Cross over these doubles and go into that, and that's, and draw up and do our double crochet. So that's the only really difference we do here. Just that starting point. Since we're working in the round, we have to do it a little bit different. But now we're going to go ahead and start off by skipping 1 and putting double crochet into the next 2, and crossing over those, going back into the one we skipped, and doing our double crochet. Skip 1, double crochet in the next 2, cross over, go back into that one, do our double crochet just like that. And then when you get back around, you'll just slip stitch into your chain 3, and then we'll do a row of double. Okay, so I've made it here. I've done 1, 2, 3, count, starting down here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows. So my beginning row is a double crochet, and my last row is a double crochet, and I have a double crochet in between my cross stitches. So now what I'm going to do is chain 1. You should still have 60 stitches. I'm going to go back into that same stitch and single crochet, and now I'm going to do a row of single crochet around the top here, to finish this edge off. If you want to make your headband wider, by all means you can do a couple more rows, whatever you choose. So I'm going to do 1 single crochet in every stitch until I make it back around here to my starting point. Alright, I've made it to the end here. I'm going to go ahead and end by slip stitching into my first single crochet. Not that chain one, but the first single crochet. You should have 60 stitches still. Go ahead and tie off. And I'm going to do one more thing here. So now I'm going to flip it back over. Just turn it over. I'm going to clean up this bottom edge, kind of match. We're going to do a row of single crochet down here. So here's where I started. So you just kind of want to start somewhere down here around the back of the seam. And go into one of those stitches and draw up a loop, and this is just going to finish off the bottom, so it cleans up that edge, and then that having a single crochet down here, row down here, will match up down the top. So we chain 1 and we go back into that same stitch and single crochet. I'm going to try to hide these tails as we go, but I'm going to go ahead and put 1 single crochet, oops, into every stitch all the way around the bottom here until I get back to my starting point, and that will make the bottom edge nice and neat, match the top, and then I'll meet back up with you when we get back around to the starting point. Alright, I have made it back around, and I'm going to go ahead and end by slip stitching into my first single crochet. And you should have 60 stitches here, and if you don't have that exact number, it's okay, as long as it's close. Now what we're going to do is go ahead and hide any remaining tails that we have on our headband. So I'm going to go ahead and do that real quick. Alright, there is the headband portion. I think I said it once, but I'm going to say it again. I really, really like this yarn. I'm not much for yarns that are variegated, but this is really, really pretty. So we got the headband, and then we got the matching pocket scarf slash pocket shawl, whatever you want to call it. But I hope that you enjoyed my tutorial. I really do. And I hope that you were able to follow along okay and make this set for yourself, or a gift for someone else, or for charity purposes. It does make nice gifts, great for charity, or make it for yourself. You deserve something nice too. So if you like this video, I'd appreciate it if you give me a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. I got hundreds of crochet tutorials, hundreds. If you want to learn how to crochet, I will teach you. And if you don't crochet, if you're a knitter, I got tons of yarn content too. I like to do yarn reviews and on new yarns, and show people new yarn shops and yarn comparisons and anything to do with yarn I love. And if you make this or anything else, you can tag me on Instagram. Come follow me on Instagram. I do show things on there that I don't show on YouTube. You can hashtag whatever you make, knit, crochet, anything, yarn. I like to see yarn. Tag me in any yarn deals you see. Hashtag Bagoday crochet. But that's it. Thanks everybody for watching. Everybody stay safe.